Hello and welcome to our first webinar of the year. Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. We're excited to just kind of share some updates on the fund, and also Leah's going to share some of the new things happening in the area. It's always growing, always exciting. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you.
So we might have some new people on today who haven't heard the presentation, so we're going to give an overview of the area. If you're already invested in the fund or already seen some of the webinars, then this may be a repeat, but sometimes a repeat's good to reaffirm what you know, that the growth is just nonstop in Dallas. I don't know if you saw, Leah, not a surprise at all, but U-Haul comes out with their report every January, and they just came out of where people are moving, and guess what was number one again? Yep.
Yeah, I actually put in all new market data updated for end of Q4 because it's incredible, specifically looking at prices, the increase, and also workforce increase, but of course housing shortages. So excited to share that with everybody.
Yeah. So Texas was number one on U-Haul, then Florida, and California last again on that chart of where people are moving. Okay, so North Dallas rental fund update. I know some people are still coming. Just going to go ahead and move to the disclaimer. Remember that this is not an offer. The offer is actually in the PPM, which you can download from growdevelopments.com for the offering documents. And a lot of people ask tax questions. Just take the documents, give them to your CPA, get your tax advice there because it's different for everybody. And of course, the past is no, it's an indicator of the future, but no guarantee. So we'll be using a lot of data that is the past and where we think things are headed. But of course, nobody knows for sure. All right, this offering is for accredited investors only. It's filed as an 506C, which is why we can talk about it publicly. But because of that, then we can only allow accredited investors in. That means that your net worth is either over $1 million, excluding your primary residence, or you just have to meet one of these, or you have an income over $200,000 or $300,000 with your spouse for each of the prior 2 years, and you expect the same this year, or you have a license as Series 7, Series 82, or Series 65. All right, so I'll hand it over to Leah on the exciting things happening in your area.
Yeah, so I just wanted to do a little bit of a high-level market update and overview. It's the beginning of the year, and of course, there's been a lot of changes in the financial industry in the last few months, specifically as it pertains to what's happening with rates and with just kind of the climate of what we expect for 2024. And so really the high level of all of this is that North Texas is booming, and that's been going on for many years, but it seems like every time we think that we've hit the cap of where we're going to go, it just goes higher and higher. And so this slide is just a really good way for you to see why. You can look at DFW, which is in blue here, and you can see not only the cost of doing business, but also the cost of living. And you can see that compared to all other top metros, which we are the 4th largest metro in the US, soon to be the 3rd, we're now slated to be first by 2100, which means we will overtake LA, Chicago, and New York. You can see why. We're more affordable to do business in, we're more affordable to live in, and so this is why we are bringing in all these businesses, and specifically all these tech businesses. And I say that because we have so much happening here in the electronics industry, but we are a very diverse economy. It's one of the ways that we've been insulated through different market fluctuations, unlike other large metros in Texas, like Houston, for example. So just wanted you to see this because it's very important to understand the dynamics of why it's been happening, and that also helps us understand why we expect it to continue to happen. In fact, what we're seeing is an increase in what's happening. And again, that's because there's such a mass exodus of areas like California. So this is population density of growth patterns of people relocating here. And I'm sharing this because a lot of the questions that I field for someone who's just talking with me about Dallas, and we say Dallas, but we're really talking North Texas, is why we don't sell the inner cities. Well, one, because we don't have to, and B, because that's not where the development is happening. That's not where this crazy growth is happening paired with returns. And so when you look at this metric of where people are moving, the darker the color, the more people are relocating there. And you can see that although Dallas and Fort Worth are massive, it's the suburbs where this highest concentration of growth is happening. And that's not just for people, that's also for businesses. And why is that? Well, it's more affordable, it's newer infrastructure, it's safer, it's better highway connectivity. There's a lot of reasons why, but the bottom line is the suburbs is where the growth is, and so that is where we target, and that is where we've been targeting really since day one.
Yeah, I think that really helps clarify like why it's as much as an hour north, and we wouldn't call that Dallas really. It's just the Dallas metro area.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't realize how big Dallas is. And the reason why we're so unique is this highway system. So we have the second largest number of highway miles per capita in the whole US, and that allows us to travel a lot further at faster speeds, but also keeps our traffic patterns down. We have a lot more land available, and we grow suburb to suburb as opposed to inner city outward. And so what that means is that we're not landlocked like you are in LA and other areas where things get so expensive in the inner cities because there's literally nowhere to go. That's not what the situation is here. If you look at the Fortune 500 that have relocated to DFW, for example, in the last 10, 15 years, almost 100% of those relocations are in the suburbs. And so we're targeting the areas that are growing, and it's the highways that allow you to do that. And so we can be 40 miles from a job and get there in 40 minutes, which is still a shorter commute than most of the US. Although, of course, these areas we're targeting, they have their own employment. So that's not something that someone has to do, but virtually you can live and work anywhere in the Metroplex. So new NAR report just came out of what they expect for 2024, and they labeled DFW last week the #2 market in the entire country for pent-up housing demand. Of course, that's coming from our housing shortage and record increase in population and job growth. Our job growth is up just over 4% from September 2023. That's kind of like your near year-end numbers. And they're saying that almost 22% of renters right now will be able to afford a median priced home. And so what that means is as rates come down, we should expect a massive influx of buyers coming in and buying, which is what we've been talking about for months, right? That once rates come down even the slightest bit, that pressure is going to ease, people are going to buy. And so there's something like 14 million home buyers in the US sitting on the sidelines. And this is just important for you to see that even in a huge market like us, it's still so undervalued. There's a massive share of renters, because we're about 50% renters here, that are able to buy. And so I think that that's going to be a huge driver in what happens as rates come down. Also, we have the largest number of people under the age of 18 in our state, and specifically here in North Texas, and a lot of them are aging into home ownership age and renting age. And so that also creates a lot of strain on the housing supply here.
Okay.
So this just kind of shows you growth by sector. And I threw this in here because I want you to see that it's not just one sector that's growing here in North Texas. It's one of the reasons, again, we've been so resilient. It's everything. Our GDP has grown significantly. If we were a sovereign nation, we would be the 20th largest, I think now 19th in the entire world. And so both Texas and DFW as a whole are just exploding. So again, we're named top market to watch in 2024. Homes are on the market just 25 days on average before going under contract. That's as of November. First-time home buyers are making up about 31% of new purchases right now. And single family construction is up only 42% year over year, which you have to remember, we've been at all-time lows. And so that's not near enough to keep up with what's happening right now. So where we're going to focus on, for those of you who kind of know where we've been focusing, this is Grayson County, which is going to be Silicon Alley, Silicon Prairie. They've kind of coined both names, but Silicon Alley seems to be what's taking off. And so essentially this is the new Silicon Valley, and it is all based around chip manufacturing. So the Semiconductor Tech Hub was actually just established in October 2023. So I'm going to talk to you about what's been going on in Grayson County, and that's namely TI, Globotech, and Finisar, which is now a different company name. But the bottom line is that people think that that was all CHIPS Act money because they were announced and started at the same time the CHIPS Act kind of came to be. In reality, the CHIPS Act just named Sherman as one of their hubs, and the money from that hasn't even started yet. So all this money that we're talking about is just the beginning. What's coming from the national and federal government, we haven't even started seeing the benefits of that yet. So we're one of 31 tech hubs that were designated across the US. Texoma was one of 2 hubs in Texas, and we're competing for a share of $40 to $70 million in grants that these companies will be able to opt into. So on the national level, of course, you have $280 billion with the CHIPS Act, and this is all within the last 24 months. So if you've heard me speak, you know about this. National level is $280 billion, and then in June, our state passed the $1.4 billion in addition to that, where Texas is incentivizing over and above to keep these companies coming here. A huge chunk of that, of course, is expected to go into Sherman. So again, we've got these three massive projects undergoing right now. Texas Instruments is building a 4-factory, $30 billion investment here. Their first factory is nearing completion and will be operational by 2025. Globotech has a new semiconductor manufacturing plant that will be a $5 billion investment. They will also be active starting in 2025. They're expecting to be making millions of chips a day in that period of time. And then finally, IIVI, previously Finisar, they have been here. They got massive grants from Apple. They do all your Face ID radar type technology. And as soon as the construction's finished with TI's first conductor, they are starting their expansion of about $3 billion. Of course, I think that they've timed it like this because there's just not enough workers to build all this stuff. But these companies have been on record, specifically Texas Instruments and Globotech, saying that this will be their expansion and investment vehicle for the next 40 years. So again, we're just at the beginning of seeing what this is going to bring for the area. So the bottom line is the area is going crazy, which is what you would expect, right? So you've got this tiny little town of 40, 50,000 people in this area that really has been this small southern kind of country, Mayberry-like area that suddenly has all these tech jobs about to come in. We're talking about 10,000 jobs in a 12-month period. And so the prices of homes in Collin County has gone crazy, and we would expect no different from the northern neighbor in Grayson County here. And so this whole area, all of this North Texas area on the northeast side is just exploding. So Grayson County is up about 61% from pandemic time, and because of the tech boom that's going on, they expect the population of both Sherman and Denison to double in the next 5 to 10 years. In fact, Denison has one project going that's a home development. It's like a massive luxury community with all sorts of stuff. That one community has the ability to double the population of Denison by itself. So we're talking incredible numbers here, and of course, all of this means housing shortage. And I don't want you to think it's just tech companies, right? Because there's massive, massive employers in Grayson County, specifically Sherman and Denison. And so Tyson's actually your largest employer, won't be for long, but it is right now. And they employ almost 2,000 people there, but there's tons of massive major employers, distribution centers. You have to remember this area is major distribution channel, major highways. The highway that goes through Sherman right now, 75, is being reworked to become part of I-45. And that will go all the way from South Texas all the way north into the country. So, I mean, really just incredible access here. So where are they going to fill all these jobs? Well, right now they're bringing people in and coming a lot from California because, you know, people that come here and make 200,000, that goes a lot further than what it does in San Francisco. But the bottom line is that they need to be training people here to take these jobs because there's just not enough. And so we're seeing initiatives not only in the college level, but also in the high school level, partnerships with different institutes and universities to prepare people for these tech jobs. One of the big ones I want to focus on is what Sherman ISD is doing, where they have actually partnered with firms like TI to expand their STEM opportunities and build STEM labs, literally to prepare these kids to start working at TI. And if you go to the next slide, we're actually going to see a picture of what this new high school looks like, and it's absolutely incredible. So we've got a lot going on in Grayson County. So of course, number one, I mentioned this additional 40 to 70 million that they're going to be seeking, which will be tech grants under the CHIPS Act that has now passed since we've been labeled one of the 31. The Sherman Mall, which has been just kind of empty and sitting, is now getting a $20 million revitalization to reopen. That'll have a Dillard's in Burlington. So obviously there's a lot of expendable income here because our cost of living is lower. So when you come visit, you'll notice there's shopping everywhere. Sherman hasn't had a lot of that other than on the highways. And so now what they're trying to do is get into these cities and build the infrastructure that's needed. And if you've heard me talk, one of the things I talk about is we like to invest in areas that have to keep growing just to fulfill the needs of the people that live there and are moving there. If you go down in the city, they can stop growing. They have enough grocery stores. They have enough of these things. Where we're talking Sherman Denison, they do not. Workforce Solutions Texoma just got a $300,000 grant from the Workforce Commission. Airport expansion, North Texas Regional Airport just got $4 million in state grants. So again, we've got all these little pocket airports to the north that are trying to turn into major airports. There's no question that we need a major airport out north. We've got Love Field and DFW right now, which they're less than an hour away, but there's so much happening in Collin County and so much distribution that needs needs to happen, that I 100% believe there's going to be an airport up there. The question is, are they going to do the regional airport or are they going to do McKinney? McKinney tried to pass it, it failed. Now they're saying they might pay cash for it. Amazon's already done expansion there because Amazon's hub's next door. So not really sure where this new airport's going to be. What I know is it's going to be right around Sherman. And so we're talking 15, 20 minutes to a major airport. The Beach Club is this new lagoon construction that was just announced. It's going to begin this year and it's expected to be completed in the next 2 years. Absolutely huge undertaking, but these luxury resorts and developments are exactly what we would expect to see with high paid tech jobs coming in. And then finally, as I mentioned, the US 75 construction. This is a $142 million project that's extending this major highway into and through Denison to Oklahoma, converting Highway 75 to I-45. And then Collin County, which is the county down to the south, so that's McKinney, Plano, all the areas that we hear about on the news. Massive projects going, not only highway expansions, billions of dollars in development for office space, malls, tollways now expanding into Oklahoma, just incredible things happening. So I'm not going to focus too much on this, but the bottom line is that nothing is slowing down. If anything, we're seeing more and more money pump into this northern area, which is exactly what we expected. And so one of the things that I've been talking about for the last year that now has actually become news is Denison is trying to target the smaller companies that supply TI, Global Wafers, and these other companies. And so when we see a big company come into an area that's using tech type features and things, they have a lot of supply pieces that they work with. And those pieces, the companies that make those, supply those, they're going to want to be close by. It's just a lower cost, especially as we have all this fluctuation with gas prices, higher cost of living and operating in these other states. And so Denison saw this and knew that they needed to act. And so they've actually created these business parks, and they're now out there soliciting these companies and these suppliers to come to the area. And this is typically what we see, right? You see one company come in, and then the suppliers who, give them what they need to create their product come close by. And so that's why all of this transit comes into play, why our highway system is so important, why these airport expansions, DFW is already like the busiest airport in the US, and they're adding a whole nother terminal. And so everyone is preparing for what's coming. There's going to be 1.5 million people that move here in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. They don't know how long it's going to take. What they know is that half of those people are coming into northern Collin County and Collin County. So it's just incredible what's happening here. I hate the traffic patterns. It took me 1.5 hours to get downtown the other day in rush hour. And so I stay kind of here in my northern neck of the woods, but it's absolutely incredible for someone who's been born and raised here. And this is that pie chart of growth and different employment in this area. So I just want you to see how diverse it is, not just in the city and in the main metro, but also in these suburbs. So although we're excited about all the growth and expansion with electronics and chips and all of this, we are very, very diverse, which gives a lot of protection and insulation from market fluctuations. So of course, talking about what's been happening on a nationwide level, we know inflation's coming down. And so Kathy and I, when we set out to do this fund, one of the things that we talked about was the unique opportunity. Kathy, you want to speak to that a little bit and kind of where we started and why we did the timing that we did? Oh, you're muted.
That would help if I, there we go. Yeah, so we know it's almost been 2 years since the Fed announced that they were going to start raising rates. And it was May of, what was it then, 2022, that you and I looked at each other. We were at a live event for Real Wealth and thought this is the time. Rates were just starting to go up, not out of control, but it's like, wow, this is pricing out a lot of people. They're not going to be able to buy. They're still going to need a place to rent. We can start the fund, buy the properties all cash, and we won't have to worry about rates. And when rates come back down, then we'll refinance and buy some more. So we did the opposite of what so many people were doing. People were freaking out, thinking there was going to be a housing crash. We thought absolutely otherwise, that maybe in certain areas like Austin or Boise, where prices had gone up so dramatically, there's still pockets where prices were affordable, but still not to the average home buyer. But for us, buying a rental property, just incredible bargains. So I would say, and that, of course, we saw, this is about when it happened. Inflation just started to spike, and this is about when the Fed started raising rates. So now it's coming back down almost where it needs to be, which is this 2% level. But the last 6 months, Actually, if you take away the 6 months prior, but just the last 6 months, we are below that 2% target. So we're pretty much there. Let's see, so I'll go through this list to make sure I didn't forget anything. So overall, producer inflation was flat in November. Year over year, it fell downwardly revised 1.2% to 0.9%. So that's lower than the 1% that was expected. The core rate, which strips out food and energy, was also flat. And year over year, core inflation fell from the revised 2.3 to 2%, while expected to fall to 2.2. So we're there. And that, of course, is why the Fed is changing course. Again, anything you want to add to this?
Not really. I think it's just really looking at where this target was. And I think we've been here for a little bit, but if oil and gas was driving it, it was almost half of that 3.9, 3.6% number they kept throwing out there. Now the gas has come down a little bit, and there's been some news in the last 24 hours about drilling and some different law things. There's judges making a lot of decisions this week already, and it's still early. But I think we're going to continue to see this drop. So the bottom line is that we're there. And I was literally doing an interview with a group of lenders on a panel right before the Fed spoke, and we were talking about whether we thought they would mention the reduction of rates. And I did say that I thought they would, and most of the lenders on with me did not. But the bottom line is they've now hinted. It's not a question of if they're planning to drop rates next year. They've all but admitted it. And so now it's, well, what does that mean for the housing market? What does that mean for the housing economy? And how do we prepare now for it, knowing what's coming? And, that's of course what the whole purpose of this fund was from the beginning. It was to take advantage of a pause where we knew that there was no actual data that made us need to have a crash or a recession or any of those things in housing. It was just a pause because of what the Fed did with rates.
Mm-hmm. So we again know that rates went up dramatically. This is a big shock to the system, big shock. Yet people still, just because this happens doesn't mean people don't need a place to live. So they're going to choose to rent. Rent was about 45% cheaper than to own with these kind of rates, but we see them starting to come down. Nowhere, I think right now it's a little bit even further. But every time we've seen rates come down, we've seen a frenzy back into real estate because there is so much limited inventory. Obviously, affordability is out of whack, but with such low inventory, there's enough people who can afford to buy when rates come down. And there's enough people forming families that just don't want to rent. They want to own their own place. But that leaves a whole lot, millions of people who still need to rent.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So this is looking at kind of what the forecast is. And so this is your big five: Fannie Mae, Redfin, NAR, the MBA, and Wells Fargo. And everyone's in alignment of what they think rates are going to do. And this actually came out right before the Fed spoke and said they were going to reduce. And so my guess is if you revise these five now, they'd probably be even lower. But the consensus is we're going to be back down close to 6% next year at some point. And, when I started buying property, heavy investing for our portfolio, that's where rates were. So that's pretty historically normal. The 2, 3, 4, and these kind of numbers that we were seeing, they're not normal. They're not healthy for the economy either. And so getting back to normal is all it's going to take. Getting steps towards normal is all it's going to take for rates to come down, and that's what we've been seeing. We have clients locking in the 6s again. So things are definitely changing.
Yep.
And similar to kind of what they're saying with rate drops, they're forecasting home sales to increase and new home sales to increase. Everyone's pretty much in agreement that things are going to go up this year. And so, the goal with owning property, cash flow is great, don't get me wrong, but appreciation is the real winner. You look at the last 81 years in real estate, only 7 years have been flat or down. So there's really no greater hedge against inflation and market fluctuations like this than real estate. And so, for me, especially personally, I have a huge portfolio. I'm a big believer in that. But when we see a year like this where they're calling for massive increase, that's exactly what we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So again, calling for new home prices, you can see kind of what the historical has been in the black to the left, and then what they're thinking is going to happen on the right. And so, new home construction has continued to skyrocket. It's not coming down, specifically not in our market. And the moment that these builders trade lines open back up right now, they're really having to build product that's pre-sold because of what the bank's done to kind of constrict their lines with rates. Once rates come down, that's all going to loosen back up because buyers are going to be back off the sidelines again. 14 million sitting on the sidelines conservatively, and then these builders are going to go crazy again. So the concerning part of all this is when we look at an area like Grayson County, which has been the huge focus of my portfolio and the fund, why are inventory levels the same that they were 4 years ago? All this population growth, all this job growth, why do we have the same amount of inventory that we did 4 years ago? In fact, why do we have almost the same number of inventory that we did 7 years ago? And that's really scary to me. It's scary to me as a parent that has kids that need places to live. It's, it's great as an investor, but from the human perspective, it's really scary. And this is a problem that's been almost 50 years in the making. We are simply not building homes. It got really bad after the recession, the Great Recession, 07, 08, and it's just never really rebounded. We're so far behind. We're 20 years to catch up at this point.
Yeah.
So this is the labor force growth for the same period of time in the same area. So you can see the number of people that are coming to this area, the number of growth that's happening, how quickly they rebounded after COVID. And this is Grayson County. It's just astronomical what's happening, but we're not seeing it happen in the housing space. They just can't build enough to keep up. And I also wanted to show unemployment rates just to show that we are back down to pre-pandemic levels. And this is specifically, again, Grayson County. So we're not talking the hottest area of Dallas here. We're talking Grayson County. And then, of course, prices, same thing. We're at historic highs. Oh, you're muted.
Keep doing that. All right. Our fund is open until February 11th, but you don't want to wait till then because it takes time to read the paperwork, get your accredited investor documentation. Basically, you need a third party to prove that you are accredited, either with the the income qualification of 200,000 as an individual or 300,000 as a couple, or $1 million net worth excluding your primary residence, or the securities license. So you would want to get on it right away because once it's closed, it's closed. Here's some of the areas where we're investing. You can see Fort Worth, Dallas is this red area, and this is where a lot of people focus, but that's become really expensive. This is an area actually right around here where I started investing, so we were already kind of outside of that red. Have you ever invested in that red zone?
No, and not only have I never invested in it, I don't sell it. And so it's just not an area I believe in. Turnover, crime rates, price relative to rent ratio, growth patterns, it just doesn't fit the bill. And unfortunately, when you have an area like I mentioned that doesn't have to grow, doesn't have to develop, it's going to feel market fluctuations. In addition to that, all the things that we love about North Texas, even the way that we handled COVID, when you get into those inner cities, their policies are very different. And so there's a lot of reasons we avoid them.
Okay. So where were you born? Right in this area?
Yeah, so I was born in North Dallas, where the tollway now meets almost to where Frisco starts. And then I moved to Plano as a teenager. So yeah, that same kind of general corridor there is where I was born. Michael was born in Mesquite. So right on the edge of that red area. And we've lived in the northern edge of the green, that dark green, our entire life together. I mean, we graduated early and moved in together, and I was, 2004, so I was 17, and that's where we've stayed our whole time. And we actually, I just bought 35 acres here in McKinney because everything's growing up so fast. Everywhere we go, we'll buy an acre, buy 2 acres, and then it becomes built up. We're like, okay, well, now we got to own our view. So I am now in the outskirts in McKinney, trying to protect having that kind of big backyard feel that it's hard to get now.
It must be shocking to see the growth. I mean, these were all basically farmland before, right?
Yeah, and soccer fields. Like I remember what's now George Bush Turnpike, that major highway, it was all soccer fields, miles and miles of soccer fields and recreational fields and nothing. And then they brought in all the beams to build the highway. I'll never forget, I was like 14 and it was purple metal beams. And all of us are like, what are they doing with all these purple beams? And then they dug 40 feet down to build the pass-throughs. We're like, oh crap, that's a highway. And then they built Frisco Mall. And my mom's like, well, will you go take us out to this mall? I want to see the mall in Frisco. It's in the middle of nowhere. So we drive the 25 minutes up back roads to get to Frisco. And they have these big ponds and fountains and this massive mall in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there was nothing for 10 miles. And Michael and I are like, what is happening? And we got into real estate a year later. So,
Yeah.
you
better jump on this.
like all the signs were there, but I think people just missed it because Dallas was never on the headlines. It was never on the charts. It's been slow growth for fast growth really for 20 years, but everyone was so fixated on these real hyper markets like Orlando and Vegas and California and New York, and we've kind of been the underdog all this time. And now all of a sudden you can't help but look at Dallas because we're suddenly the 4th largest metro in the US and about to be 3rd. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a little bit more about the fund and the properties that we currently own. 40 closed, 5
Yep.
pending, yeah.
Yep, so we've got 5 that'll close in the next couple of weeks, and then I think I'll have enough to buy 1 more, and then we will be at the end, barring whatever else comes in over the next month. We've been raising pretty consistently, so I'm guessing we're going to end somewhere 47, 48, 49 houses.
13 in Sherman in that high growth area, actually really 14 when you count the duplex. Denison, just again, another super high growth area. All these areas are, right?
Yeah.
But the majority in the chip manufacturing area.
Yeah, northern Collin County and that whole kind of corridor is where we have focused. And then also going up Highway 35 where all that crazy growth is happening. So you've got Highway 75, Highway 35. We've kind of been up and around all of that as you saw on that map.
Yep. So we'll go through some examples. This is 601 East Day. Denison purchase price $101,000, renovation $35,000. Rents coming in about 1% of purchase and renovation, which was $136,000. What do you think the value is of this property now?
Probably $175,000. Yeah, I mean, all of these have just done great. So this one's just finished right now. They're finishing final touches actually this week. And it's a great house. I mean, where can you have a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1-car garage house under $140,000 totally renovated? It doesn't happen. And so that's why we do this, right? And so at the end of the day, these are the houses where you're going to have such a high demand because these entry-level homes is really where the shortage is. And this one, Whitesboro. So Whitesboro is like halfway between Gainesville and Sherman. And I don't know why it's so expensive other than it is just this really nice area. People love it and there's not a lot of property there. And so it's actually more expensive than Sherman and Denison because there's such a housing shortage there. We picked this one up for $83,000. Renovation was about $35,000. Renovation's finishing right now on this one today. We already have a tenant, $1,200 a month, and this is a 31720 square feet, super cute house, and we're all in at $118,000, exceeding that 1% rule. So I didn't want to spend a ton of time going through all the ones that we've presented that are done, but we're down to the last couple renovations, and then we're finished. So it's just incredible. You look at the befores and after on these, and I talk about this a lot. It doesn't matter how ugly it is before. If I have to redo it, I have to redo it. It's going to cost me the same, and these are just absolutely beautiful. So we had BPOs done on the first 18 by an independent agent here, a licensed agent. And basically his numbers came to about 3.628 on the first 18, and our acquisition cost on those was under 2.7. So we're seeing, based on his assumptions, and it matched my assumptions as well, I anticipate about 25% equity on each one as we finish average. And that's only half the properties as of that time.
And that's without the appreciation just from the growth of the area. That's just right at
that's
the
just it. Renovation. Yeah.
So the basic fund overview: buy and renovate 1 to 4 unit properties in rapidly growing markets throughout North Texas. When interest rates allow, we would refi and use that cash to buy more. Target return 8% annually, coming in the form of cash flow, and then and if there's not enough cash flow to meet that 8%, it builds and you get it later. Time frame 3 to 7 year hold, probably more on the longer side because we want to take advantage of the growth. So you can get this recording and many of the others at growdevelopments.com. You'll see several offerings. This, of course, is the Texas one. And we can take your questions now if you have any. So we are, it's a $20 million offering. We did not raise the 20 million, so there's room for more investment until February 11th. But funds have been coming in steadily. No more questions. Okay. All right. Well, again, if you want to find out about it, just go to growdevelopments.com. And if you have any questions, just send them to us. I think there's an address here. here. Oh yeah, minimum investment 50 units, $50,000, total max 20, offering close date 9 months with 3-month extension, which is February. Accredited investors only. And Triplett and Kathy McBride can help you fill out the paperwork if you have any questions. All instructions are on the investor portal. You can send questions to, again, syndications@growdevelopments.com or visit growdevelopments.com. Thank you, Leah, for the thorough overview of what's going on and for the beautiful slides. Thank you all for joining us. Happy New Year. One question just came in, can a group invest? Yes, there are rules around that on the subscription package. You can download the subscription package and it will explain it. Everyone in the group would need to be accredited. So if somebody's not accredited, that doesn't really work. So everyone within, as I understand it, and everyone within an LLC, if that's what you formed, would need to be accredited, or that LLC would be, I believe, I don't know, you need to read the subscription packet, but I believe certain ones would have to have a $5 million net worth. What is the payback strategy? So as cash flow comes in from rents, it's distributed. Oh, the distribution is not on here.
Yeah, so distributions are quarterly. And then essentially anything that we cash out refinance, which I'm watching rates very closely. My lenders are already in the upper sixes. And so as we get closer to the lower sixes, I think that'll be a conversation Kathy and I have. So we underwrote everything as cash purchase. We wanted to be extremely conservative in an interest rate climate that was rising. And so, you know, our hope is that we can cash out refinance, go buy more property, and then of course that return skyrockets. And so that's my goal, that's my plan, so long as things continue on the trajectory that they are. But you know, the return that we're estimating that we have met or exceeded is just based on cash ownership. So quarterly distributions after you've been in the fund for 2 quarters, and then everything that we cash out refinance before year 3 is put back into buying more property. Anything that we cash out refinance or sell after year 3 is paid back for capital payback to the investors, according to the split in the fund documents. So it just depends on when it happens, but my anticipation is that we will cash out refinance these and go buy more properties. And of course, each property we buy has that equity piece, that, you know, forced appreciation that's really important. And so we want to keep doing that, but we don't want to hit the cash flow by taking loans that are too expensive. So Kathy and I are watching that closely, and my hope is that we can act on that in the next 12 months.
Yeah, and when you go to Grow Developments and look at the offering documents, you can just look at the fee section and the splits and who gets the money first and so forth. That's all outlined really clearly in the documents. Oh, we have more questions. When do you expect to start selling, and will you sell some to raise additional capital for more purchases before the wind down period?
Yeah, so I don't anticipate selling anything in the next 3 years, unless we had a problem child property, which, you know, I don't see any reason we would, but it can happen, especially when you've got, you know, 50, 60 properties. Other than that, I don't see any reason that we would sell anything. I did split some lots off some of the properties. They had extra land we didn't need and made a good penny on those, enough to go buy another house. But other than that, no, we're going to be holding and really watching, because as I mentioned, the first factory at TI is not even going to open until early 25. And then they've got 3 more to build, and they're just going to keep growing and growing and growing. So we really want to hold long enough to capitalize on the crazy growth we're expecting. And so at the end of the day, we're watching it. I'm watching it. You know, not only do I have fund properties here, but I've got hundreds of my own too. And so it's really important to me that we take advantage of the high growth time. If I see signs that things are changing, then of course that would be a conversation I would have with Kathy. But you know, the metrics that we're seeing here are not what I would expect for something like that. That said, you know, if we have one property, like we have a property in Farmersville in Collin County, that's a big house, it's like 2,000 square feet. We're in it for like 200,000 or less, and it's probably right now worth close to 350. You know, when you're sitting on that type of equity in the house, if the rents don't keep up, that might be when I look at selling a little sooner. And so again, we're watching every property, treating each one as its own business decision, and we'll keep you guys posted as we continue to do the updates. But my anticipation is we're going to hold close to that 5 to 7 year mark.
Best way to become an accredited investor, again, you either have to earn 200,000 if you're single, 300,000 if you're married, or you have to have $1 million net worth. A lot of our members have become accredited investors from buying real estate, building their own portfolio. That, of course, your investment properties count the equity within them towards that accredited investor status. Probably the easiest way would be to, I don't know about the easiest, but you can also get, get a license with the SEC, and that would be a few months of studying, and, you know, you could become accredited that way. Let's see. What is the minimum amount for existing investors to add to their investment in the fund? If you've
I,
already invested the minimum amount, I believe you can invest whatever you want after that. But I don't know. You'd probably want to
I
ask.
think I think each edition is a new subscriber, so it would have to be at least 25,000 to half share.
Okay, there you go.
I believe that is the right answer, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Kathy and Ann will be able to answer that question. When do you anticipate the market growth to occur? Closer to 1 to 2 years or 3 to 5? I think you just explained that.
I mean, it's already happening. Sherman's up almost 10% year over year. So it's already happening. When I expect things to go crazy is when all the workers for these plants start coming in. I
Hmm.
mean, again, a city, Sherman is 45, 50,000 people. They're adding 10,000 jobs. Where are those people going to live? I mean, this is like simple supply and demand. I have no idea what's about to happen. And I haven't even talked about the fact that this whole area has a massive apartment shortage because they've all been building down in Collin County. There's almost no apartments up here either. It's unbelievable. If you haven't come visited, come on one of our tours, come visit. It will blow your mind.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking. And even if they do build a lot of new homes, which they will eventually if they can find the land to do it, you cannot build for the price that that we have these. That would be impossible unless
No,
they
so
were like
actually
little
the average
studios.
price point, yeah, the average price point up there now for new construction is approaching 500,000.
What are the tax consequences? Would we just receive a K-1? You would receive a K-1. It's a pass-through entity, so the tax deductions and all will pass through to the investors as well. But bring the PPM and operating agreement to your CPA to review to see how it affects you personally.
One more thing I'll also add is all of these cities are starting EDC fees and sewer drainage and other type of development fees on their inner city lots. So like where we've been selling and building under OmniKey, the main company, for all these years, they're now tacking on an additional $13,000 to $30,000 per lot that is not already subdivided to create new neighborhoods. They're calling them impact fees. And so they are essentially pricing out all of the entry level homes. They only want, and they've been on record saying this, expensive homes. They want $500,000+ homes. So when we talk about this shortage of entry level homes, Denison's fees start literally in a few days. My builders are pulling out, most of them out of Denison, unless it's the stockpile of lots they already have. So this is literally one of the last opportunities we're going to have over the coming year to be buying entry level homes. We'll keep renovating and having access to renovation property, but most people don't have the ability to do that. Entry level new construction, all of that, other than our contacts that are direct off market that sell exclusively to us, it's gone. Go look on MLS. You'll see there is nothing entry level anymore. It's crazy.
Someone had a question. Once you refinance, does that trigger this to become subject to UBIT? That's unrelated business income tax within your IRA. I would take the documents to your CPA to see what kind of impact a refinance would have on your tax situation, because it's different for everybody. When does Grow Developments expect to send out the 2023 tax statements?
I think they're starting preparing those right now from the emails that I've seen.
Yeah, we have a really good accountant who works on other funds, and they're on top of it. The profit share split after the 8%, it's not an 8% pref, it's an 8% target. So that's important to share. So the profit split is?
So basically it's 100% capital payback. So you get 100% of your capital back before our split even comes into play. So we wrote this one specifically that way. And so everything right now that's profit after expenses is coming 100% to the investors. And the PPM will go through what happens upon sale.
Yeah. And so, yeah, again, the PPM explains all of that. Also the website at Grow Developments. We have done, Kathy said we have done 15,000. So that was the answer to the question of what can we reinvest if we've already invested. So just talk to Kathy and Ann, and we'll run it by our attorney to see what we're allowed to do. Again, somebody just asked about the K1s. They are working on it. Next Dallas tour.
And we have one, I believe it's the 27th of this month. We have 1 or 2 every single month. So if you just reach out to us, investments@omnikeytexas.com, or you can just email me directly, I can give you those upcoming dates.
Great. Yeah, and we also have it on our website at Real Wealth too. If you click on Connect, I believe it is, you'll see events and tours.
And we do
All
private
right.
tours every week too. So if there's a date that you need to come down and tour, one of the team members can take you out as well.
Yeah. All right. So it's a great fund. It's a great opportunity. I think we're gonna be shocked at the price point. Say, oh, we look back 5 years from now, what we paid for these properties. It was a shocking little window of opportunity, and it's still there. It's still there. I think it's going to change in the next 6 months, but the opportunity is still there. All right. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you being here and joining us. Again, if you have any further questions, just reach out to us at syndications@growdevelopments.com. Take care. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.